What is up, everybody? How you living? No putts given. Tony, Chris, we're back, but we're different. Where are we, Tony?
We're at MyGolfSpy headquarters in Yorktown, Virginia.
Typically, when we do these, Tony looks behind us.
I know.
And we see.
I never remember where I am or what's
because
going
the
on.
people watching can't see what's behind us until we look.
It's 4-side screens. It's very exciting.
We have a couple guests. Would you guys introduce yourselves? Because if I do it, we all know what might happen.
You got it. Yeah, Brian Bazzel, product creation here at TaylorMade. So, yeah.
Matt Simone, Director Custom Product Creation.
What does that mean? Like, what do you actually do?
We think about golf equipment, golf balls, accessories a lot. We think about a lot of golf things, anything you want to use on the golf course, we're thinking about it daily.
Things off the rack, things that are in custom, so in my world, fitting, custom shafts, custom grips, custom offerings. How do we optimize the club for the golfer?
We'll get into that with this new line, and obviously point of this is talking about new Qi35, which is the new flagship line for TaylorMade and Metalwood franchise. So we're gonna go through all this kind of fun stuff and talk about that, but safe to say custom fitting, and the fitting part of it is an increased emphasis this time around. I don't want to say it's new because you guys certainly talked about fitting before, but it feels different to me this time in terms of kind of how you guys are attacking that.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're trying to create a system here. We're trying to make it efficient but broad, right, with our product offerings, along with how we're going about head and shaft fitting and adjustability.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're trying to help golfers play better golf, hands down. And so you can do that through just straight up engineering of the product and then optimizing that for the individual.
So let's jump right in because it plays to the fitting piece. What does the 35 in Qi35 mean?
I was so wrong.
Well, for us, it means a couple things. Obviously, it's a big leap. We didn't want to do a 2 or 20 and felt like we had more to this product than just sort of that next generation. It is the next generation of a Qi product, don't get me wrong. But 3, we have kind of 3 pillars of the form language, the beauty of it, the functionality, how it performs better, and then the fit. And so that's kind of what the 3 stood for. And then 5 ways to ultimately optimize the golfer through the heads we offer and the fitting heads that we offer as well. And so there's a lot to unpack, but that's kind of where it came from.
So 3 is form,
Function,
fit, and then 5 are ways that we'll kind of talk about the adjustability and different ways to kind of get it dialed in. But all right, so let's start with just kind of top level view. What's new? What do we have? What are the products? And we'll kind of go through each of them here, and I can even hold them up. We have samples. This is good.
Yeah, I mean,
Props.
We got props.
as a golfer, right, the first thing you see is what does it look like? We can talk to you about what it does, what we did to make it better, but you're going to look at it and say, hey, do I like that? And you can see there's a carbon fiber throughout almost the entire head. It's a chromium carbon. It's more of like a gray or a silver. So really cool, light, strong, does all the things we want.
Similar to what you did on Sim, right?
So Sim was the first time we used a chromium. This is a little bit more of like a cooler tone to it as opposed to like a warmer tone, but yeah. And then ultimately, what we did throughout the rest of the cosmetics, the gunmetal, even the polish. The polish of the metal is at a higher quality than we've ever done before. Honestly, just the little details.
Super excited about the polish.
I am. I get excited about this stuff, to be honest. Yeah. And so the look. That's the first impression you're going to have as a golfer.
Yeah.
And then in terms of like what we did and what we were trying to do. Last year with Qi10, we talked about forgiveness, the idea of 10,000 inertia, stability on off-center shots. In a perfect world, you're trying to make essentially a face that no matter where you hit it, will go the same every time. Like the speed, the consistency. From physics, you can't actually do that, but ultimately that's what we're going after. And so in all the heads, we're pushing forgiveness. We have another 10K driver in the Qi35 Max. We push the core driver to a 9,000 inertia. And then ultimately, we're trying to get the most forgiving head with golfers at optimal launch conditions. And so the center of gravity, we talk a lot about in this product, and we can go into however deep you want to go to push the center of gravity down. And by doing that, you're going to get better launch conditions, more speed, higher launch, lower spin.
Yeah, we'll get to a little geek session here on CG projection, which is going to be a new term for some people out there, but it's one of those things that's vitally important to the whole tech story and really performance story of this entire line, even if it's something that sounds like gobbledygook, to most golfers. It's going to be kind of super important. So before we move on to kind of the performance attributes and stuff, again, you see, you guys kind of obsess over these different details that maybe a lot of consumers may not notice or totally care about. What are 2 or 3 of your favorite things you guys did from a design perspective that most golfers are probably going to overlook? They're just kind of looking through the racks and they go, oh, that's kind of unique or different. Like, what are a couple things you did that are maybe not noticeable at first glance that you think are super important?
I didn't notice the polish.
You didn't notice here, there you go.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of little details in these drivers that, again, to your point, like most people maybe won't recognize them or see them, but holistically they may say, hey, hopefully they say it looks awesome. Sure. Even like the decals or the details in here, this is the LS driver. You've got that middle section, and I know we joked about a little bit.
The flux capacitor.
Exactly. So it does sort of represent how nimble and workable that LS driver can be versus, the Max driver, which you're holding there. Yeah. We have sort of dispersed out and as if you're kind of representing the weight being pushed to the perimeter. Even the little green hits are kind of pushed to the back of the head because that's where the majority of the mass is put to get that forgiveness. So those are like really, again, subtle secondary reads as you look at the product. Yeah. Even the face, you go into the face and the details of the face, we'll get into the fitting aspect, but the core product having sort of this, a couple different things happening here. You've got the line at the top that gives you the alignment when you set down the contrast from the chromium to the black face. And then this sort of outlined version here on the stock products of this 4th generation of a carbon face. But then the fitting parts have reflective markers within it. And we'll get into that as well. And so just the way we went about doing that. And again, like, will it be noticed? The fitters will notice this. They'll have some fun with that. But there was a lot of intent in the design.
Yeah.
I think also as you look at like moving a high amount of weight over large distances, right? The ability to do ports and carbon fiber and then spread that mass out really is what unlocks a lot of the center of gravity properties and the mass properties where you can make physics your friend and really leverage those things.
Physics is your friend. That's well said. I like that. What do you think, Tony? You like how they look? Give me a scale, 1 to 10.
Oh, that black one is so pretty.
How do you think they look, Tony? 1 to 10?
No, I'll be honest. I saw these in the USGA photos, and I wasn't sure. I was like, I don't know about the gray, but the work on the sole in particular it just looks really good. The crown. I don't know, Baz. Do you have any concerns committing almost fully to the carbon look on the crown versus the black that so many golfers love?
Well, so based on the feedback we've had so far, it's been phenomenal. Like obviously we've shown it to a lot of accounts up to this point and tour players, and it's been very, very well received. Now, we know there's some traditionalists. We know some people like that kind of all black version, and so we do have a designer series that the most sought after designer series has been black, and so we have that as well for some people.
For some people that just can't do it. Yeah, rule number 1, USGA photos aren't ever going to tell you. No. They don't do any favors to anybody. They're like DMV photos, right? Like they might as well be. So it's one of those things I think you have to see it in person to appreciate some of these details and differences. But, I think it looks fine. I also think, well, it's fine. It's good, But I do think it's one of those things where yes, we know people want to like what they look at, but it's also a thing if you do something different. Like, is it different enough that they're going to go, oh, that's a deal breaker,
right?
Where it's like, So I think there's a lot of upside to it where I think it looks unique, different, but it's not so much that someone's going to go, it's polarizing. I don't think it's polarizing.
So premium is what we're looking for. Obviously, year on year, you want people to say, okay, that's the new one, ideally. and be proud to have it in your bag. I mean, feel like, hey, I want to show this off to my friends, just from the look alone. And I think we've done it. I think it's, you know, my book is more than fine, but I'll take fine.
It has to be more than fine. No, it's fine. I like it. Let's go through the models. So in the driver, and we'll get to fairway woods here too, but driver, 3 models again, right?
Yeah, 3+. I'll just say 3+, because we have the LS, which is the low spin model.
Yep.
So this is where you're going to have the most forward center of gravity, the lowest spinning. For those, you know, faster swingers, this is going to be something you're going to want to, you know, at least test out. You got 3 movable weights within there. So pretty aggressive model, a little bit smaller when you set it down from a footprint, that kind of pear shape that TaylorMade's pretty known for.
That looks better than fine at address.
That looks wonderful at address. Yeah. Yep.
Even the left-handed one?
Even the left-handed one, even though it's backwards. And they're all 460cc. So sometimes we see in an LS model, you'll drop the volume down to a 450 or 440, something like that. Not the case, 460.
No, perception-wise, though, you'll see it looks a little smaller, and we do things within the volume itself to kind of get that footprint bigger or stretch the head out a bit. And you can see these pockets sort of in this one. This is the core model here. Yep. And that allows us to kind of like take advantage of the way that the volume is being measured, and then take advantage of, again, the benefits of being able to stretch the weight further away from the center. So yeah, this is the core model. So you've got 2 weights in here. Yep.
Let's go back to the LS real quick.
Okay.
So 3-weight system now.
Yep.
What was the decision to replace, you know, to no small measure is kind of like the signature TaylorMade technology for the better part of a decade, if not longer, that sliding weight track, right?
No, I mean, there's very cool things that you get from a sliding track. Some of the things we get from this are the ability to actually, you know, improve the aerodynamics just a touch, because you have no channels in the bottom of that sole, but also, you know, stretch that weight out a little bit further. So, you know, our track previously was just heel to toe. Obviously, in this case, you have front to back and heel to toe, and you're being able to move that weight a little bit further. So our CG movement through this system is a little bit greater than we had in our previous Qi10 LS.
So at the extremes, you know, kind of your most forward weight configuration to heavyweight in the back, what type of launch and spin differences are you seeing?
Yeah, so you're going to see a couple hundred RPMs from front to back. You're also going to, you know, so if you put all that weight forward, so if you put your 13 gram, you move it from the back, you move it in that front toe setting, that's like probably the most aggressive setting for
the one you call beast mode.
Beast
right?
mode, yeah. So your center of gravity now is projecting just below the center face of the head, which is crazy. You don't really see that in products out there or in drivers. And so you are getting the most efficient collision in that sense. You're definitely going to get a little bit more of a right bias by putting that heavy weight in the toe for a lot of golfers. Not every golfer. We see some different things in fitting, but and then you're going to drop the spin as well. And so for some players that are like fighting the spin, want to get that lower trajectory or more penetrating trajectory, that's what you want to do.
Then we got the Max model.
We got the core.
Yeah, so the core,
so
just
we
to
got
come
core,
back to
you
the
were-
core.
yeah, yep.
Yeah, so you know, we really haven't had movable weight for quite some time in the core model. So there's some added value to fitting and to the golfer. 13 grams starts in the back setting, 3 grams in the front, and again you have the ability to switch that. When the weight is all the way back, it's a 9,000 inertia driver with a center of gravity that's actually been pushed down even lower, which is really difficult to do because most times those things work against each other. Happy to go into detail of that, but you have, you know, a very forgiving driver that you can again get a more penetrating flight by moving it forward, or you know, get that max forgiveness in that setting at 9,000 in the back.
Have you had any sense that, kind of as a guy goes into a shop to buy a Qi10, for example, do you feel that not having movable weights in the core product maybe steered some guys to buy the LS when maybe they shouldn't have?
I mean, there's a lot of golfers out there. They're all looking for different things. Yeah, I'm sure it has steered some people. I mean, there's value added there. If you put a value to moving the weight or adjusting, then yes, I think there are some people that can be influenced by what does it have in there. Now it has weight. It didn't before to be able to move around. But, you know, there's plenty of people that don't ever touch it. Plenty of them. And that's fine too. Max, you ready?
Max.
Yeah. So Max is, you know, this is our 10,000 inertia driver, just like we started with Qi10 Max.
Tells you right there, doesn't it?
Again, for those, you know, math wizards like we have, being able to get the mass and push it, being a squared effect, the more you can push it away from the center of gravity, the higher that inertia is going to get. And then the difficult part is to get the center of gravity down, and that's what we've done in this Qi35 Max versus the Qi10 Max. We've actually pushed the center of gravity CG projection down a little bit lower, so we've dropped the spin by a couple hundred RPMs over the Qi10 Max.
That's going to be, that's going to be music to people's ears, right? Because if there was something, we noticed in testing, consumers noticed too, it was like 10K was great, but spin was often higher than optimal, right?
Yeah,
so this,
That's putting it nicely. Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
it was higher than optimal, like, okay. But this gets, so you got a fixed weight in the back. You can't change this around, Tony, no matter how much you'd like to. You can't change that. And I think this is the one that leads us into the CG projection story, because that really,
Yeah, so let me just ask it this way, right?
Okay.
We've talked about at best, what you would call compromises that you have to make when you move to larger, high inertia shapes. We've talked about higher spin, reduction in the swing speed that golfers can obtain as well. So what type of things have you done to at least, if not overcome, but mitigate the challenges that come with pushing inertia to 10,000?
Yeah, so there's a lot going on there, and feel free to chime in wherever you like, Simone. But there's a couple things. The swing speed piece is really probably driven off of, to get high inertia drivers, previously you're trying to add weight. If you add weight to the head, that's one way you can get there. We've actually dropped the head weight by a gram over the Qi10 Max. I know it seems small, but every gram matters, and that can affect head speed, and in this case, improve it.
Are you seeing that in your testing?
We are. We also made the length of all of our drivers the same. It had previously been the Max a quarter inch shorter. Now they're all the same length, and so we are seeing more head speed and ball speed in the Max. Not only because of the club length, but also because of the CG projection is now lining up closer to the center face. So it brings me to the second piece you asked.
Explain that as best you can.
yeah, this is we're gonna need a visual here too. Maybe we can get a whiteboard and we can draw this at some point, but
Yeah. So two things working here. One is inertia and stability, right? So the more you can create stability in the head, when you hit it off center, the head's going to want to resist twisting. And when you resist that twisting, you're going to get more efficiency in the collision. So you're going to get your head speed to ball speed is going to improve. And so again, if we can make it that way across the entire face, we would. But the higher inertia, the more stable it becomes. Now, the reality is when you hit it off center, and everybody does, the head does want to rotate. And that's where gear effect plays effect, the curvature of the face. We counteract that gear, that rotation with the curvature of the face to be able to bring the balls back to center and flights this way. And so most drivers, the CG projects, meaning there's a balance point within the head. If you put it and you balance it on a point this way, that point right there, the balance point of that face or that head, is what we measure. We measure that point relative to the geometric center of the face.
Okay.
So it's a measurement.
Yeah.
Most drivers, that measurement, it's above the geometric center, so it's up a little bit higher.
yeah. So I kind of imagine, like, it's helpful to see, but like if you were to imagine where the center of gravity is inside here somewhere, right? And so just put a dot right there. Like imagine there's a dot, and then like you said, balance this. Like if you were to get a balance point, like where it just balances perfectly, and it's like just connect those two and make an arrow.
That's right.
Right, so like when we talk about what projects, it's kind of like, okay, what is it looking at? So if I take that CG location, so the true kind of center of mass, right there, and I project it, just connect that to the balance point,
Right.
where is that balance point relative to this entire length here, right? And you're saying most of the time it's going to exit, if you will, above the center of the face.
Correct.
And we're talking a millimeter, 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters, 4
7 millimeters if you're Nike.
7 millimeters, yeah, we can go, yeah. But why is that a bad thing to have a center projection that's a CG, like when we're like 3, 4, 5 millimeters above center? Why is that a bad thing?
Well, essentially, again, like you're trying to get the most efficient collision, and you're trying to get that performance on off-center shots as well. You're trying to balance the performance when you miss hit it, and so if you're going to hit it, let's just say you hit it low on the face, which a lot of people do, Tony.
Tony, you ever hit a shot a little thin down here?
A little thin down there.
So the low face shot is further away from that CG projection. Yep. And what happens is that head wants to rotate like this, rotate down. Bad. So what happens is you get a lower launch and a higher spin.
Not fine. No. Not fine.
So it robs you of distance, right?
Okay. Makes sense.
Now we have things like the speed pocket, which is patented by TaylorMade and gives you a little bit more speed down low and drops spin. So that's helpful. When you hit it high on the face, same thing happens. The head wants to rotate back, giving you a little bit higher launch, lower spin, which most of us know that play golf long enough that that's going to give you a longer trajectory, a longer distance. Yep. And so the more area of opportunity we can provide above that CG projection, the better off the golfer's going to be, or the ability to get maximum distance is going to.
So basically, if I'm a golfer, and ideally I'd hit it perfectly every time. We don't. Even pros don't, right? So if I'm just thinking about it, like, hey, what's a good strike versus a bad strike? I want to make contact at that CG projection or above it.
Yeah, the best place to hit is out of center. Shocking.
Yeah,
right?
weird.
Yeah, weird. But yeah, if you're going to miss hit it, typically it's a little bit higher on the face has always been a little bit better. We see most golfers, it's sort of low heel to high toe is a typical trend, but yeah.
So and we can kind of go through these. Like, getting that CG projection lower means we got to find a way to get the CG lower inside the head, right? And that's what a lot of this technology, weight savings, movement stuff around has done. How much have you been able to shift that? Because the other thing that does is bring spin down, right? And that's been like I said, that was something that needed to happen in the 10K model for sure. So how much have we moved that down, and kind of what's happened as a result, and where do you think that kind of places this in the market?
Well, it's going to place it in some of the lowest CG projections in the market, especially with the inertia that's combined with. I think we do also like to have, we don't want our Max product necessarily to perform just like the LS product. So we actually like having some separation. I don't know, Simone, if you want to expand on that, but the way we did it was sort of through engineering, and we can talk through that, and the processes we've created to kind of save every half gram, every little gram from the highest part of the head, repositioning it down low.
Yeah, I think it's important to have separation in models, right? You have certain players, especially at certain speeds, where they actually need spin, right? Sure. Not everyone should be driven toward the lowest spin product that they have. You want that ball to stay in the air and everything. So by having separation, having distinct models like we do, it's very powerful for a fitter. And then when you add in the movable weights, then you can start to move in between models, right? And give some options where they might like the larger footprint, the high MOI size, or they may prefer the pear-shaped size, things like that. So
like 40% of our drivers last year, QI10, were sold as Max drivers. So for 40% of the golfers, the optimal launch conditions were in that head. So I know you guys said earlier, hey, it would be ideal to get that down lower. You're right in the sense of, like, we think we can give more golfers better launch conditions with a 10,000 inertia driver. And that is part of the goal that we're doing. And if you look at, like, on tour, how many players started to gravitate towards a more forgiving head in the QI10, they did it because they can get the right launch conditions where previously they couldn't with that MOI.
I was shocked to see it, too, going back last year, the QI10, the core model we saw. Again, people you might assume faster players, tour players, not going with the LS, right? So a lot of people just blindly assume, hey, it's the LS head. It is a little bit more expensive, which some people might think, oh, it's the more tour-driven.
Right?
It's got to be better. Yeah. It's the more tour-driven one. Faster players need to reduce spin more, da-da-da-da-da. Yet, we saw just kind of the opposite, right? You saw some really, really fast players find what they wanted in the core head. Why was that, and how does that impact this kind of lineup?
Well, it just coming back to it, like again, being able to get an increased inertia, but with the right launch conditions is kind of like the catalyst for why they did it. So Scotty Scheffler, #1 player in the world, player of the year, playing more of a core driver. Now he shifts a little bit of his weight more forward in that head, just a touch, but still bigger head, more forgiving, great launch conditions. Nelly Korda, best women's golfer in the world right now, plays the Max, QI10 Max, and now looking into Qi35 Max. So proper launch conditions for her as well. Again, like taking advantage of the stability of the head, but also You know, #1 player in the world from the women's side. That's crazy, right? It's pretty cool.
She's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine. She's fine. Fine. She's fine.
Yeah.
Fine ball striker, Scotty Scheffler. So yeah, let's kind of go into the fitting part because we're kind of leaning into that too. Like when I look on,
Can we start with my favorite part?
Yeah. There, I'll even let you hold it. So we can see the differences here. So one face.
Yeah, look closely. So on this black one, which is better than fine, I might say, kind of have these hollowed out dots, right? Just kind of indicators, but not quite indicators. And then on this one, full silver dots. You might call them fiducials.
Reflective fitting markers.
Yeah.
So talk to us about that, Matt.
Yeah, for sure. So for the first time ever in our product, in our Select Fit product, our fitting heads, right, we have reflective fitting markers built underneath a layer of TPU, right? So they're embedded into the face.
These aren't stickers.
These are not stickers. They are underneath the layers. They are reflective to the IR light coming from like a GC Quad unit. So it's really exciting. We can embed them into the face so we know exactly where they are every single time. We have 3 on the heel, 3 on the toe, so we're finding face center with a high amount of precision. And really from a fitting standpoint, right, when you see launch and spin and curvature, you're trying to understand why that is. Like, why is the player doing that so you know what to change during a fitting. When you don't have head delivery information, there's a bit of a guessing game with that, right? But now when you know, oh, is their strike toward the heel? Is it low in the face? Is that why it's spinning and going to the right? Or is it a face to path issue, right? Now when you have these delivery characteristics, you know what to change and how to try to drive that player toward the center of face as much as you can. So it's an extremely exciting time for us to really give that level of precision to every single product we have and know where it is in every single product and not ask the fitter to put on the stickers themselves, right? And use a template and have to figure it out.
Guess, basically.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. Yeah, right, exactly, yeah.
So also worth pointing out, if anybody's been in fit on Foresight GC Quad, typically, was it 3
3
stickers?
or 4, right?
4 stickers, yeah. 3 on the toe, 1 on the heel, yeah.
And so now you're at 6.
Now we're at 6, yep.
And did you work directly with Foresight to make that happen?
We did, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we partnered with them and just try to understand, like, where do we need them? How far apart do we need them, right, to give that information so that the 2 club head cameras are reading things properly and then can give us the information that we're looking for.
And for now, this is only in the fitting heads, right? So people who own Foresights or use them regularly, no soup for you.
Right, but I would say, like, if you're a Foresight person, you have that, like, the nice thing on the production heads is, like,
template's there.
It's right there. Like, I can probably get a sticker on each of those with some reasonable, level of accuracy. I should be able to do it decently. So, and Matt, maybe you can talk about this too. Is like, yeah, that's a fitting component. We're seeing more companies lean into fitting. Number one, why is that? Why the emphasis on fitting, this level of emphasis on fitting? And 2, maybe give us a couple specific scenarios where it's like, hey, here's the type of benefits. I want people to try to understand, like, that's great, get fit. Like, what does that actually mean? Like, how could that actually help somebody during a fitting scenario? And what might be actually different versus, hey, if I got fit last year, why should I get refit this year using a new or updated system?
For sure. So if we just look at fitting in general, right, we know and we strive for ultimate performance on an off-the-rack product, right? Our engineers spend countless hours doing things, running simulations, doing player testing. We want to give the best product we can off the rack, but we know when we go to a really good fitter and we optimize that product, we know we can unlock so much more, especially if you see like either a newer golfer, to the game, right? We try to give them as much MOI as possible, but when we start to line up the correct model and the correct loft, you can really start to see some big gains. On the other end of the spectrum, if you have like a high speed player, right, that's never been fit, right, they could be in very poor launch conditions and, right, small incremental problems from impact location or curvature of the face or whatever may cause, right, some pretty big offline numbers and everything like that, right? So I think that's why all of us in the industry really feel that fitting is extremely important, right? We engineer these products to a high level, but we know we can unlock so much more performance when we really start to optimize the setup and everything from the shaft to the weight locations to the head model as well when you have like 3 distinct head models like we do, or 4 with our Max Light, right? We look at scenarios where we really start to look at things, right? We really try to break this down into a 3-step process, right? We want to dial in the head model, get you into the approximate correct window, approximately correct model. From there, then we look at the shaft, and really we're starting to look at the shaft in a very different way, right? We at the Kingdom have looked at shafts for years, almost in a left to right kind of way, right? We look at the shaft because it's where the golfers hold the golf club, right? It's our connection point. How can we deliver that club as consistently as we can every single time? And with the shaft, these companies are doing great things. They create very distinct models with how they do the layups and how, you know, strong or stiff or soft they are in certain areas. So they want to bend and move in certain ways. And we know the golfer, the human brain is amazing because it tries to line up the club face square every single time as much as they can.
You're trying to hit it square.
They're trying to hit it square, right? They always want to get it back to square. And so they're doing different things with their body and their hands and everything to do that. And so when you can start to marry how the shaft wants to twist and bend and move to what the human player is doing, when those two things line up, the shaft feels good, right? That's the feedback you always hear. And essentially it's just those two things with a bit of synergy there, which is fantastic. And so when you do that and you get a pretty consistent shot shape as a fitter, now I really start to push the bounds with FCT face angle and movable weights. We leverage the physics in a really positive way to try to get them back. Physics is your friend. We try to get it back to, you know, center line square with optimal vertical launch conditions and stuff like that, right? So we look at the way the golfer releases, we're looking at closure rates and some other, you know, parts of the delivery mechanics. And then we've started to develop some algorithms and some systems there where we can predict, here are shafts that tend to work for that player, and now we give those options to the fitter, so they don't have to know everything about every shaft. We try to simplify that process to make it efficient and make them seem, you know, more competent in what they're doing.
So let's go into the weeds just a little bit here because
that was not in the weeds enough. Let's go deeper. Let's go deeper.
Well, because I think when most golfers go into a fitting, what they experience or what they see emphasized are kind of that ball speed, launch angle, and spin rate. Right? Mm-hmm. That's kind of what we've all been conditioned to look at and think, let's just get that right. But as you mentioned, and part of the reason why you put the markers on the head is understanding what we have to adjust to get to that optimum range. Yeah. And you mentioned closure rate. Right? This is a metric you get from Foresight that we haven't heard about, we haven't heard discussed much at all. So can you tell us, what is closure rate, and how are you actually leveraging it to
why do we
better
care?
fit golf?
Yeah, absolutely. So closure rate is degrees per second, right? It's rotation through the impact interval. It's how fast or how slow the golfer rotates the head. Now, you might think, okay, there is an optimal closure rate for people, and it's really essentially, we've been talking about, it's your thumbprint, right? It is everything that is in your downswing, how those things add up to how you're trying to square the club face at impact. And
so not necessarily you have a good closure rate or a bad closure rate.
Not at all.
This is just who you are.
It's just who you are.
You want a consistent closure rate.
You want a consistent closure rate, right? And when we see in the fitting side, right, when you are in, let's say you're in a shaft that's very wrong for you, right? Mm-hmm. We see the closure rate all over the place, right? Sometimes you're trying to catch the head up, other times you're trying to hold the head off, right? You're trying to find square, your brain's trying to find square, and you're kind of counteracting the shaft in certain ways, right? But when those two line up, we start to see the closure rate really narrow, get very consistent, and then you see the player get comfortable, you see the speed increase, you see impact location tighten around the face. Again, it is a bit of handicap dependent on how tight that area gets, but now you really start to see like that really efficient impact collision and stuff like that.
Counterintuitive was kind of the word that came, like when we were going through the fitting process with you guys, because one, thinking, okay, we haven't really talked much about this metric, so okay, how are we going to apply it? What does it mean? What does it, look like? And you use a couple really good examples of, like a Xander Schauffele has a very, very low closure rate, right? Charlie Hall, really high closure rate. Obviously, both pretty good golfers, right?
Absolutely. For sure.
But how does closure rate relate to shaft type? This is the part that I'm still kind of working my thinking through here.
Absolutely. So let's go, we'll start with like Colin Morikawa, right? Great player, low closure rate, right? Bose's left wrist in transition, so he's starting to shut the face very early in the downswing, right?
Yep.
And so as he gets into impact, he has a very low closure rate, right? He's already started to do that.
I said Xander, I meant Colin.
Yeah, Colin.
Whoever.
So he already
Get the
starts to
names,
do that in the beginning of the downswing, right? So he doesn't have to do much at impact, right? There's still some closure, but it's much less.
Yep.
So for his type of profile with a low closure rate, we tend to trend them toward a stiffer tip section. The stiffer tip sections have a lot of material, stronger materials, whatever it may be. They don't want to rotate. They don't want to move as much. They're very stable, right? So that matches him very well. Opposite end of the spectrum is Charlie Hull, right? She has a ton of lag late in the downswing and a ton of rotation very late, right? And it's very fast. So she has a high closure rate. And so she has historically always used a softer tip section, right? So that thing wants to move and bend because it's very soft, and as it rotates, it really matches her swing. And then you have someone like Rory McIlroy who kind of sits like right in the middle of the bell curve, right? Pretty average, obviously not average in distance or talent, but very average in.
He's fine.
Yeah,
also
he's fine, right? He's fine, but
decent.
very average in his rotations. And we have him on gears and stuff at the Kingdom and everything. And so you look at him, historically has played what we would classify as like a middle of the bell curve shaft, right? Middle of the bell curve type profile, right? And that just tends to match him and really unlocks everything that he can do with a driver, right?
Yeah, I just think that's such an interesting fitting component, because you talk about, like, we talk all the time, like, why does fitting matter? And okay, yes, it makes sense, right? If I can be fit to this product better, yeah, we can unlock performance. But when you say something like that, it kind of makes you reevaluate, like, I wonder how many people are in the wrong shaft.
Yeah, we've basically, as we've given these presentations to groups and really talked about this stuff, it's funny, as I look out into the sea of people, whoever we're talking to, you can see them thinking, like, almost losing track of what I'm saying, being like, am I in the wrong profile and stuff? And I've had a lot of people come up to me at work and be like, can you fit me? Like, absolutely, let's do it. Let's jump in. And when you see the things start to match up and you maybe move them, right, a historical, let's say a person that's high launch, high spin, right, a high ball speed player, potentially in a very, very stiff profile because that's what they thought they were supposed to be in, right? And you suddenly move them to the opposite end of the spectrum, like let's say a Ventus Red or Denali Red or something like that, and they actually get better ball flight conditions. Maybe their spin comes down a little bit and they're like, you can see like their head wants to explode. They're like, what do you mean I've been playing the wrong profile? But then when it works, we've seen it repeatedly. It's a bit of magic. It's pretty amazing.
Part of that's because, I mean, and I'm not saying shaft companies done any of this on purpose or anything like that, but the way that they've categorized or maybe sold shafts is misleading then, based on, or it's at least inaccurate based on
Incomplete.
I think it's really like I said, when you put these things on a robot and it's swinging the same way every single time, it will absolutely do what they say it does, right? Sure. If you have a softer profile, it will launch higher with higher spin, right? It will have more dynamic loft or impact. You just don't know what the human being is going to do when you put it in their hands, right? They might go along for the ride, they might counteract it. You just never know. Yeah. But we know that a release style, even the highest handicappers, if you look at path numbers on a high handicapper, they're extremely consistent. Their face angle numbers are not, and so the difference in those cause big curvatures, but their path numbers and stuff are pretty darn consistent, even up, to the highest handicaps. So when you can marry those two together, really, you give them something that they never really had before, right? You give them a sense of confidence in everything and how they can swing the golf club.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think of higher speed player, maybe good ball speed numbers, etc. But if they've had higher closure rate, probably better in a softer tip shaft. Sure. Right. And just the opposite. You can take somebody who's maybe not as fast, but has a really low closure rate, and they'd be better in something that's a maybe stiffer tip profile. You go, that doesn't necessarily, again, that's going to be different for people to hear. For
sure. And we've really had to take a conscious look at our custom lineup and everything that we're looking at, and really bring all these shafts in, measure them ourselves, and really stack them up against each other. And when we do that, now we can start to create these zones, even for the slower swing golfers, right? There are certain shafts that will be, relative to other things in that grouping, stiffer tip or softer tip, even though it's still maybe an A-flex, right, on the shaft. Relative to the other ones, it will play stiffer to that swing speed of a player, right?
So there's a lot of information in there. Just even the stiffness of the shaft, right? I mean, you're looking at, we talked about tip stiffness, but the torque of the shaft, the overall profile of the butt stiffness of, like we're looking at tempo. There's a lot of things we're looking at besides the rate of closure. That's one variable, but it's very interesting. It's helped us significantly.
And you have tools coming out, right? I mean, I know you have tools for fitters. There's going to be other educational opportunities around some of the stuff. You guys are going to have questions, no doubt, and we'll start to kind of unpack it, because it is a lot. It's a lot to try to understand. 2 minutes on these guys, because you guys did make fairway woods too this year, right? Not just drivers. No. Yeah. Because somebody's getting.
Have you seen the polish on these? I mean, these in particular are absolutely
tens and tens of people. We've said read my articles on these, so I wanna take at least 28 seconds and talk about these. Biggest takeaways on these, again, 3 models.
Well, the nice part here, the easy part is like the first takeaway is we've been able to move the center of gravity down as well in our fairway woods. And
CG projections
down a little bit, yeah. We look at the Z up, we call it, basically the CG from the ground up, because you're hitting a lot of these fairway woods off the ground, and so that's a very important metric. You know, where's your impact relative to the CG, relative to the ground? And so we're moving those down. Some of that's done, like in the core head, the profile's a little bit lower, a little bit shallower, but one of the cool things in the fairway wood you're holding there, that's the tour fairway wood, is the this adjustability piece. So we move this TSS weight to the front center. You got a 40-gram weight that slides forward and back.
The garage.
You can see upwards of 300 RPMs, you know, of change, and then you can take it out, flip it around. It's asymmetric. You can even get more adjustability there. So somebody who likes to really tinker in a fairway wood, this is the one. And then one of the cool things we added to the core and max fairway is that we added the loft sleeve. And so we have previously had them in our fitting parts, but didn't offer that to be a sold product or in the product that we sell. And so we didn't want to do it until we could really push performance and add it to it, which we've done that. So by changing the profile, lowering the center of gravity, and then ultimately putting the loft sleeves in the core and max fairways, in the 3 woods and 5 woods, you get the ability to adjust face angle, loft, what shaft you want to put in there, and that's a real added value for the golfer. It's hard to get, you know, fitting fairway woods can be tricky, but
Do you find you fit very few on a comparative basis?
relative to drivers and irons are definitely the 1 and 2, but
I think that's one of the pieces, if you look at the overall way we're going about fitting, trying to increase efficiency, is give enough time where the player feels like they've had, right, and enough options, enough time to have it be really meaningful. But if it's not so long, then we might be able to do more. For wood fittings, which we know as you get into the middle top of the bag, it can be a very challenging space to get the correct launch conditions, to get the correct gaps and distance and stuff like that. So we'd love to give more time to our fairway woods in a fitting environment for sure, just to get something dialed in for players.
So more than tens and tens of people should read fairway wood articles.
100%, absolutely.
Is what we're suggesting
Hundreds of
here.
tens should read fairway wood articles.
Hundreds of tens.
Hundreds of tens. I love this. This is good. And then there's
35.
exactly. Then there's a max model as well, and a max light, right?
Yeah.
So
so the max model, from an inertia standpoint, from a stability standpoint, we haven't measured any other fairway wood that's anywhere remotely close to that. It's a 200 cc head, low profile, easy to get the ball up in the air, and very forgiving. We didn't mention the lights. I'm glad you mentioned it, because in the driver we have a max light driver, and that's why I said there's like 3+ models. Yeah.
3 and change.
Coming back to that, because for those players who really want to increase their swing speed, they struggle with swing speed, and by decreasing the overall weight of the club helps that golfer kind of generate a little bit more distance.
The light ones, basically, we're talking lighter components, lighter head, everything overall makes sense is lighter.
Yeah.
Physics, friends, all these things, right? This is what happens. Cool.
Hybrids, real quick.
Yeah, a couple tweaks to the Qi35 lineup. We did kind of reduce our offering, but made some smart decisions here. So we went to a core Qi35 head that is adjustable throughout. So it has the loft sleeve. And so previously we had a tour rescue and a core rescue. They kind of like melded together, so to speak.
Kind of met in the middle on this.
A little bit, yeah. Because we wanted the hybrid to be something that, did what a hybrid should do, right? We see some better players and golfers go to like high lofted fairway woods for all the reasons there. We can dive into that. But to have a rescue that you can adjust, that fits a wide range of players, which is in this Qi35 core model.
Yeah, it's still what I love about this. We talked about this yesterday. It was like, all right, you took the tour. I thought you'd screwed everything up. And then I looked at this and I was like, all right, so it's not big, but it's not super compact. It's good size for me.
Yeah.
It's definitely kind of that size and shape that I love. And then with the top line that gives you more of that iron-like look at it.
It does. And then we offered in some heavier, stiffer shafts for the better players and some lighter, softer shafts for some of these average swing speed players. Yeah.
I think one piece that's really important to note is it seems easy to just say, I'm going to throw an adjustable hosel in with the speed pocket. But as you reduce the length of that speed pocket, right, it's a challenge to not lose some of its effectiveness. So it seems like an easy problem to solve. It's actually extremely hard to solve for because you don't want to lose that low hit performance that we get from the speed pocket. So to be able to go in there, add in the adjustability piece, but still stretch that and make the length long enough to make it effective and everything and still maintain durability and everything like that is really, it's not an easy problem to solve for.
Especially in fairway woods, because people, again, you're hitting them off the deck a lot, much more often, off the tee or teeing it down. So when people are hitting fair, typically impact is going to be below center, right? So you absolutely can't afford to give up performance on low center contact for any adjustability. That wouldn't help any golfer, right? So you have to maintain that, but then adding the adjustability back in is not, I mean, if it were super easy, you would have just done it a long time ago, right?
Like, yeah, it's not trivial by any means.
Yeah.
All right, before we let these guys go,
Let's do that.
give me a driver. Let's
Hand you a driver.
have the uncomfortable talk.
Okay, let's do it.
So
Let's do it.
So let's-
Uncomfortability, we saved it for the end.
let's talk about your carbon face. Two things I want to talk about. First, we know not every golfer loves the carbon period hard stop. We had in the comments on the article we posted when these hit the USGA list, we had a few people say TaylorMade lost me with carbon until they change it. I'm not coming back. Still fully committed to carbon, I
Absolutely,
assume, right?
yeah.
Because that, here we are.
Fourth generation, yeah.
The other piece, right? We talked about this last year. Had some breakage issues, some delamination issues, face separation, whatever you want to call it. I know it's kind of a work in progress to an extent, but what have you guys done to better ensure that this face stays connected to the rest of the head?
Yeah, hey, I mean, every driver, any company that's trying to push the envelope are going to have failures at times, and we've certainly learned a lot through the generations of carbon faces and this system that works together, and we've made significant improvements. In fact, QI10, I think we made massive improvements, and it was definitely a focus. I mean, we were hearing it from the market, hey, some people were a little bit, obviously we don't like people to have those issues, although we know it's going to happen at times. The best thing we can do is to service them the best we can and get them into a new product. But what we learned from it was, hey, we got to improve the systematic kind of flavor of everything happening there, the face and the body working together. It's a complete engineering marvel on how that works, and we've learned a ton there. Secondarily, like the process in which all these parts are coming together, we needed to continue to make improvements there as well. And so we did make significant improvements in QI10, and in QI35 pushed it even further. And so you were mentioning the loft sleeve and the speed pocket. Well, that loft sleeve, that speed pocket, that face, the collar, that all kind of flexes and rebounds together, and we need to make sure that those are kind of working together in unison and not trying to kind of detach, or their flex profile is too drastically different. That could be a problem. And so through our simulations, we've been able to kind of improve upon just the system itself. And then the tolerancing of everything that's put together is hugely important in the way we process it. And so that was our next step, the next kind of evolution of improvement on the carbon face and the durability. So the way we make our epoxy, how long or how big the epoxy vats are, so you get consistency. And then the time in which it takes to prep the collar and then adhere and bond that face has to be a certain amount of time so that you can ensure that that bond is strong and not going to have any issues there as well. And so we've made, you walk into a factory that are making these heads and it's like a doctor's office. I mean, it's a clean room environment. It's nothing like drivers were made 10 years ago. And so are we committed to this going forward? Absolutely.
So it's not going to be titanium next year.
No, I mean, you just think about the fitting thing we just talked about and what that unlocked. Like, without a carbon face, you can't do this. And so we talked about it when we went into carbon and said, hey, we saw sort of the end of the road with titanium. We pushed as far as we could. And now the efficiency of the collision that it's provided with that lightweight face, and then the avenue it provides to do some things that you could never do in titanium is there. And this is going to help golfers 100% through all the fitting and optimization. And so, yeah, to say the least, we are committed to this.
Sounds like more confident too, like you said, in the product durability, et cetera. You learn things generation over generation, et cetera. I mean, as always, we'll see, right? I mean, that's the ultimate testing ground is people buy the product, put it in play, and then we kind of see what happens. But it sounds like you're more confident in this product than previous generation, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
For sure.
Very excited.
Anything else? That's a lot of info. That's a lot to
I
digest.
think we went long as usual. That's awesome.
It's fine. It's all fine.
It's all fine.
It's all fine. Physics your friend. Qi35. Black. Available out there. If you have questions, comments, things, let us know. If we can't answer it, we'll just give you Baz's phone number, so you can text him directly.
Home number. We don't want to bother him at work.
Yeah, we don't want to bother him at work. We'll give you his home number. That's not a problem at all. But until next time, we out.